The mandatory teaching of Jose Rizal's life, with the emphasis on his landmark novels, is inscribed in legislation. Republic Act 1425, more popularly known as the Rizal Law, was passed in 1956, leaving a colorful narrative of debate and contestation. As an introduction to the life and works of Jose Rizal, this video will begin with the reading of the Rizal Law, and in this chapter, you will study Republic Act 1425 within its context, look into the major issues and debates surrounding the bill and its passage into law, and reflect on the impact and relevance of this legislation across history and the present time. In the course of the discussion, the process of how a bill becomes a law in the Philippines will be tackled, so you will have an idea regarding the country's legislative process. The life of one of the major champions of the Rizal Law, Senator Claro M. Recto, will also be discussed. So, my dear students, once again, this is Sean Xavier Alclita. Welcome to our Rizal class. Okay, so our learning objectives is that at the end of this chapter, the student should be able to, number 1, locate the passage of the Rizal Law within its historical context. Number 2, determine the issues and interests at stake in the debate over the Rizal Bill and relate the issues to the present-day Philippines. So here's the vocabulary, the 3 words that is being put there. First is the bill. Bill is a measure which, if passed through a legislative process, it becomes a law. Next is unexpurgated, basically untouched, which means it's untouched. In the case of the novels of Rizal, unexpurgated versions were those that were not changed or censored or remove the parts that might offend people. But when we say bicameral, it involves the 2 chambers of the Congress, the Senate, as well as the House of the Representatives. Okay, so here, the context of the Rizal Bill is this, that the post-war period saw the Philippines rife with the challenges and problems, with the country and tired from the stresses of the World War II. Getting up on its feet was a paramount concern of the people and the government. As the Philippines grappled with the various challenges, particularly the call for nation building, prominent individuals who championed nationalism came into action. They pursued government measures to instill patriotism and the love of the country in the hearts and minds of the Filipinos. These people drew inspiration from the Philippine experience of the revolution for independence against Spain, and from the heroes of that important period in the country's history. One measure sought was the passage of the RA 1425, or the Rizal Law, which was primarily set to address a need for a rededication to the ideals of freedom and nationalism, for which our heroes lived and died. The passage of the law was met with fierce opposition in both the Senate and the House of the Representatives. Okay, so here, the legislative process. So we're going to discuss how a bill becomes a law. So the Senate and the House of Representatives follow the same legislative procedure. Legislative proposals emanate from a number of sources, so they may be authored by the members of the Senate or House as part of their advocacies and agenda, produced through a lobbying from various sectors, or initiated by executive branch of the government with the President's legislative agenda. Once a legislative proposal like a bill is ready, it will go through the steps illustrated on the next slides. Okay, so here, step 1, the bill is filed in the Senate office of the Secretary. So here it is given a number and a calendar for the first reading. So here, in the step 2, it will start a first reading. So the first reading, the bill's title, number, and author or authors are on the floor. So afterwards, it is submitted to the appropriate committee. So next one is step 3, no? So in step 3, committee hearings will be uh, will be will be commenced, no? So here in the committee hearings, so the congressmen or the senators will invite the to um, resource persons for the Senate or the committee hearings, no, in aid of legislation. So this one, the bill is discussed within the committee, and a period of consultations is held. That is why these lawmakers will invite the resource persons in order to be so that they'll be given chance to answer the questions made from the lawmakers. So here, the committee can approve or approve without revisions, approve with amendments, or recommend substitution or consolidation with similar bills, or reject. After the committee submits the committee report, the bill is calendared for second reading. Next one is step 4. The step 4 here is the second reading. So the bill is read and discussed on the floor. The author delivers a sponsorship speech. The other members of the Senate may engage in discussions regarding the bill, and a period of debates will pursue. So the amendments may be suggested to the bill. Here, on step 5, voting on the second reading. No? So the senators vote on whether to approve or to reject the bill. If approved by a majority, the bill is calendared for third reading. And voting on the third reading, copies of the final versions of the bill are distributed to the members of the Senate, who will vote for its approval or rejection. Now next one is step 7. So in the step 7 will be the consolidation of the version from both from the House of Representatives and from the Senate. No? So the similar steps above are followed by the House of the Representatives in coming up with the approval bill. If there are differences between the Senate and House versions, a bicameral conference committee is called to reconcile the two. After this, both chambers approve the consolidated version. And next one is step 8. So the transmittal of the final version to Malacanang. So in step 7, after the two versions from the Senate and the House of Representatives are consolidated, so the bill is immediately will be submitted to the Malacanang in order for the to be given the approval by the President of the Republic of the Philippines. So the bill is submitted to the President for signing. So the President can either sign a bill into a law, or if he disapproves it, then he will sign a veto and return it to the Congress. So here, one of the prominent authors of the Rizal bill, the Senate number 438, was Claro M. Recto. No? So he was born on February 8, 1890, and he passed away on October 2, 1960. So he was the main sponsor and the defender of the Rizal bill. No, was Claro M. Recto. So he was born in Chaong, Quezon Province on February 8, 1890. to Claro Rector Sr. and Micaela Mayo. So he completed his primary education in his hometown and his secondary education in Batangas. For his college education, he moved to Manila and finished his AB degree at the Ateneo. And he was awarded Maxima Cum Laude in 1909. So if you say Maxima Cum Laude, it is higher than that of the Summa Cum Laude. In 1914, he finished his law degree from UST and he was admitted to the bar that same year. To continue, so his political career started in the House of Representatives in 1919 when he was elected as a representative of the 3rd District of Batangas. He later became the House Minority Floor Leader. From the House of Representatives, he moved to the Senate in 1931 when he was elected as a senator. So in the Senate, he held key positions such as Minority Floor Leader, Majority Floor Leader, and the Senate President pro tempore. So Rector's career in the Philippine government was not confined to the legislature. So here, in 1935, he became an associate justice of the Supreme Court. So here, Recto was also instrumental in the drafting of the Constitution of the Philippines in 1934 to 1935. That is why the 1935 Constitution was promulgated and enacted at that time. As he was elected President of the Assembly, and after the Philippines transitioned to the Commonwealth period and survived the Pacific War, Recto again served as a senator for several terms. He also served as a diplomat and was an important figure in the international relations. Known as an ardent nationalist, Claro M. Recto was also a man of letters. So he penned a beautiful poetry and prose. On October 2, 1960, he died of a heart attack in Italy. He was survived by his wife Aurora Reyes and their 5 children. So from the Rizal Bill into the Rizal Law. So here, the Rizal Bill in 1956. So it's proposed by Claro M. Recto and the former president, Jose P. Laurel. So from here, the Rizal Bill was called by mandating schools to offer a course on Rizal's life, works, and writings. And though from there, the bill was also met with intense opposition, most especially from the Roman Catholic Church. So on April 3, 1956, the Senate Bill number 438 was filed by the Senate Committee on Education. On April 17, 1956, the Senate Committee on Education Chair Jose P. Laurel sponsored the bill and began delivering speeches for the proposed legislation. Soon after, the bill became controversial as the powerful Catholic Church began to express opposition against its passage. As the influence of the Church was felt with the members of the Senate voicing their opposition to the bill, its main author, Claro M. Recto, and his allies and the Senate entered into fierce battle, arguing for the passage of SB number 438. So the debates started on April 23, 1956. So to continue, so Catholic schools threatened because of the communist and anti-Catholic Recto and Laurel. So that's according to them, that the Catholic schools are already launched their protest against and also protest against Recto and Laurel. So they call the Catholic schools called Recto and Laurel as anti-Catholic as well as communists. Archbishop of Manila Rufino Santos requested recto to only require the expurgated version of Rizal's two novels, but, however, recto refused and insisted the use of unexpurgated version of Rizal's novels, and that is why it is already found in the RA 1425. So later on, I will show you. No? And according to Ambeth Ocampo, that the fight and the debate over the Rizal bill was also a fight of Rizal's legacy. And moreover, however, the priests who opposed the bill's passage threatened the persons behind the bill and might be considered as a heretic. No? So from here, the debates on the Rizal bill also ensued in the House of Representatives, and in the House of Representatives it was called as the House Bill number 5561, so which is an identical version with the Senate Bill number 438, and was filed by Congressman Jacobo Gonzalez on April 19, 1956. So the House Committee on Education approved the bill without amendments on May 2, 1956, and the debates commenced on May 9, 1956. So a major point of the debates was whether the compulsory reading of the texts Noli, Me Tangere, and El Filibusterismo appropriated in the bill was constitutional. And that is why, guys, that in your junior high school, so in grade 9, you have Noli Me Tangere in your Filipino subject, and Il Filibusterismo in your grade 10, no, Filipino subject. And that's the reason behind it, no, that in high school, how the Rizal law is being implemented in the education, that the Noli Me Tangere should be discussed also in the high schools. First discussed in the high school, and the other one is the El Filibusterismo was also should be discussed in grade 10 or in 4th year high school, junior high, no? So here it's appropriated and it is also constitutional, no? The call to read the unexpurgated versions was also challenged. Okay, so in the same way, the opposition threatened them by mentioning that the schools handled by the Catholic Church might be closed, no, if the bill will be converted into a law. That is why one of the priests who warned Claro M. Recto was Cardinal Julio Rosales, no? And that is why one of the senators who opposed the bill was Decoroso Rosales, no? And Decoroso Rosales and Cardinal Julio Rosales from Cebu was also there. So also these two people who also opposed the bill, no? And both of them, they are both cousins, no? Decoroso and Julio Rosales, no? So here, even so, Recto and Laurel countered the statement by the church and also by the priests, saying that if that were to happen, schools would be nationalized and the government would convert these schools into a government-ruled institutions. That is why the senators who opposed the bill was Francisco Soc Rodrigo, Mariano Cuenco, and also the groups who also opposed the bill, like the Catholic Action of the Philippines, Congregation of the Mission, Knights of Columbus, and lastly, Catholic Teachers Guild. So as the country was soon engaged in the debate, it seemed that an impasse was reached. To move the procedure to the next step, Senator Jose P. Laurel proposed the amendments to the bill on May 9, 1956. In particular, he removed the compulsory reading of Rizal's novels and added that Rizal's other works must also be included in the subject, not only the Noli and not only the Elfili, but also other Rizal's works. No? And he, however, remained adamant in his stand that the unexpurgated versions of the uh, unexpurgated version of the novels be read. No? On May 14, 1956, similar amendments were adopted to the House version. The amended version of the bills was also subjected to scrutiny, but seemed more palatable to the members of the Congress. The passage, however, was almost hijacked by technicality, since the House of Representatives was about to adjourn in a few days, and President Ramon Magsaysay did not certify the bills as a priority. So the allies in the House skillfully avoided the insertion of any amendment to prevent the need to reprint new copies, which would take time. They also asked the Bureau of Printing to use the same templates for the Senate version in the printing of the House version. Thus, on May 17, 1956, the Senate and the House versions were approved. And from there, after the consolidation after the votation of the majority decision, and from the consolidation from the Senate bill and the House bill, from there, the consolidated bill is being transmitted to Malacanang, and from there, the approved versions were then transmitted to the Malacanang, and on June 12, which is known to be the Independence Day, June 12, 1956, President Magsaysay signed the bill into a law, no? Which became the Republic Act 1425. So here in this picture, you'll see here, President Ramon Magsaysay signed the Rizal Law. So from here, former President Fidel V. Ramos directed the CHED, no, and the Department of Education. That was before it was DEX, but today it's already Department of Education, to fully implement the law through the CMO number 247 in 1994, no, to implement the Rizal Law to the Circular Memorandum, no, 247 in 1984. And then on, the CMO number 3 was issued to enforce strictly the law in 1995. And the importance of the Republic Act 1425 is that it provides insights on how to deal with the current problems. Moreover, it helps to understand better ourselves as Filipinos. Adding to that, it teaches nationalism, patriotism, and love for one's country, and it provides various essential life lessons, and lastly, it serves as a worthwhile inspiration to every Filipino. So here, this is the copy of the Republic Act 1425 from the I got this one from the official gazette of the Philippine government site, no. So it's the Republic Act 1425, an act to include in the curricula of all public and private schools, colleges, and universities courses on the life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly his novels, The Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, authorizing the printing and distribution thereof and for other purposes. So what's the purpose behind this? Number one, that today, than any other period of our history, there's a need for rededication to the ideals of freedom and nationalism for which our heroes lived and died. The second one is that it is meet that in honoring them, particularly the national hero and patriot Jose Rizal, so we remember with special fondness and devotion to their lives and works that have shaped the national character. Next one. The life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly his novels, Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, are a constant and inspiring source of patriotism, so with which the minds of the youth, especially during their formative and decisive years in school, should be suffused. And all educational institutions are under the supervision of and subject to regulation by the state, and all the schools are enjoined to develop moral character, personal discipline, civic conscience, and to teach the duties of citizenship. So therefore, by Section 1, courses on the life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly his novels, shall be included in the curricula of all schools, colleges and universities, public or private, provided that the collegiate courses, the original or unexpurgated versions of the Noli and the Fili, or their English translation, shall be used as a basic texts. So that's the reason why that we have the Rizal subject in our college curriculum. Now you'll understand why there is Noli Me Tangere in grade 9 junior high, as well as Il Filibusterismo in grade 10 junior high. Okay, so in section 2, it shall be obligatory on all schools, colleges, and universities to keep in their libraries an adequate number of copies of the original and the unexpurgated editions of the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, as well as of Rizal's other works and biography. So the said unexpurgated editions of the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, or their translations in English, as well as other writings of Jose Rizal, shall be included in the list of approved books for required reading in all public or private schools, colleges, and universities. Section 3, so this is also very important. The Board of National Education shall cause the translation of the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, as well as other writings of Jose Rizal, into English, Tagalog, and the principal Philippine dialects, cause them to be printed in cheap, popular editions, and cause them to be distributed free of charge to persons desiring to read them through the Purok organizations and barrio councils throughout the country. So here, by Section 3, it is also mandated that these novels should also be translated not only in Tagalog, not only in English, but for other Philippine dialects as well. But the question is, was it already implemented? And that's now the question. And number 4, nothing in this act shall be construed as amending or repealing Section 927 of the Administrative Code, prohibiting the discussion of religious doctrines by public school teachers and other persons engaged in any public school. And Section 5 is the funding, that a sum of 300,000 pesos is hereby authorized to be appropriated out of any fund not otherwise appropriated in the National Treasury to carry out the purposes of this Act. So, by Section 6, this Act shall take effect upon its approval. So here, from there, it's being signed by the President of the Senate, as well as it was also signed, by the by the House Speaker of the House of Representatives. So in the next page, in page 4, finally passed by the Senate on May 17, 1956, and the Senate's Secretary of the Senate, and from there, the Secretary of the House, and lastly, it's approved on here. It's written by Ramon Magsaysay, the late President Ramon Magsaysay, on June 12, 1956. So here the clearest one is here at the top. Okay, so June 12, 1956, signed by Ramon Magsaysay. So thank you very much. Hoping to see you on the next video.